Welcome to the Heal, Thrive, Dream podcast, where trauma survivors become healthy thrivers. Each month, we'll feature a theme in the trauma recovery and empowerment field. To promote your recovery, healing, and learning how to build dreams, here's your host, Karen Robinson, transformational coach and therapist.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Heal, Thrive, Dream podcast. Today our guest is Emily Cleghorn. I hope I didn't butcher it. I'm not so good with names, but she and I practiced a little bit before coming on today. So Emily has a title that I really, really love. It's called Generational Change Activator. I think it's very empowering. It's a great title for what you're doing. So what Emily mostly does is help new mamas in their first year of motherhood reclaim their personal power by busting the chains of childhood trauma and crafting a storyboard of empowerment. So I'm guessing you do some coaching. Is that right?
Yes, it is.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and so before you tell us about the coaching you do, I would love to hear, if you're comfortable, sharing with, the part of your history that led you to the work that you're doing. And again, only talk about what you're comfortable with, okay?
Yeah. So growing up, I was raised by my paternal grandparents. When I was, 6 or 7 months old, my mom dropped me off and said, take care of her. And I'm told it was me in my bucket seat, 1990s, the car seats were not what they are now. So literally was a bucket. And my dad was in and out of the picture. He was chasing relationship after relationship, looking for a void to be filled within him. And for much of my early childhood, he and I had a really great relationship. We did things together. My mom wasn't so much in the picture when it was convenient for her. Then when I was about 6 years old, my dad got married, and the woman he married had a son of her own. And I wanted to go live with my daddy because he and I, up to that point, were really close. And it didn't take me very long to realize that that was a really big mistake. I lived with my dad and my stepmom and my stepbrother for about 18 months. And during those 18 months, I was abused physically, sexually, and emotionally, mentally by my stepmom and my stepbrother. I was forced to go visit family on weekends so that my stepmom didn't have to see my ugly face. And those are her words, not mine.
Right.
And I was forced to, at mealtime, I wasn't allowed to have seconds. I could have what she put on my plate, and that was it. And she went so low as to fight with my elementary school to have me kept back a grade so that I would not be ahead of her son in school. So not only for those 18 months was my home life horrible, but school also became a nightmare because kids tease other kids that are not in the same grade as them. So throughout school, my childhood, my teenage years, my self-worth and my mental health my mental health in general was it was rocky at best. But I didn't want anybody to know how much I was struggling. So I pushed it down, really good emotion stuffer. Cover it up. Don't let anybody see, because if I felt if I was perceived as weak, then everything would just fall apart. And I couldn't be seen as weak. So I pushed it down. And then once I graduated from high school, I ran as far away as I could, went to school about 4 hours away from where I grew up. And from there, I moved across Canada. So the distance got further and further. I met my husband shortly after I moved to Alberta. And I was dead set on not having any children because I didn't want to bring a child into the world and have them be hurt like I was growing up. I couldn't live with myself if that were to happen. So having children was not on my radar. And he wanted 3. So we had to
negotiate.
We had to do a little bit of compromise. And at that point, it had been, my abuse happened around between the ages of 6 and 7. And by this point, I was 28-ish years old. So it had been a long time. And I had gone to seek help from therapists and all of these types of things. I've been searching for a way to release the grief and the pain. Mm-hmm. And I thought that space and time had kind of dissolved everything that had happened. So my daughter was born in September of 2018. And that's when the repressed emotion train steamrailed me.
Opened. Yeah.
The floodgates opened, and I was a hot mess. And I was so scared to let my husband in and let him know what exactly I was dealing with, because I felt that it made me a horrible mother for feeling the feelings that I was having. I'll be completely honest. I hated motherhood at first. Absolutely hated it. And my fight or flight response was toying with me. Do I leave? Do I stay? Do I leave? Do I stay? I can't leave. I don't want to hurt my husband in that way. I don't want to hurt my daughter in that way. She didn't ask to be born. And it was
and
just
you knew what it felt like to be left.
And I knew exactly what she was going to deal with if I left. So it was quite the tug of war until I let my husband in and I told him that I hated being a mom, and I was terrified, petrified of hurting my daughter and this beautiful little girl that we struggled to conceive. I was terrified of hurting her. And that she doesn't know it at this point. She's a busy toddler, but she literally saved my life. Mm. And that's the very beginning of the journey. And it's still happening today, 4 years later.
Wow. Tell me a little bit about your healing journey. Like what tools you used.
So I used, at the very beginning, I used essential oils and a modality called aroma freedom technique, which uses the essential oils to activate your olfactory nerve and helps you release the oils or the emotions that are stored in different parts of your body. I've used affirmations. I've read books listened to podcasts, done a lot of inner child work, done a lot of education around my stress response and learning how my fight or flight response has directly impacted the health issues that I was having and the emotional health issues that I was having. And learning about how all of that is connected really has helped me to put all of the pieces together.
That's wonderful. The only thing I hadn't heard of is the information you gave about opening up olfactory nerves. Is that what the word you use? That's pretty cool. I love essential oils and feel they can be very healing and helpful, but I hadn't heard it ever described the way you did. That's really cool.
Yeah. I never realized that they could be, I started dabbling in them for like asthma and stuff like that. But I didn't realize that they could work that deeply. So when I experienced it, and it blew my mind.
Yeah. So you mentioned, I don't know if you got a chance to listen to either podcast yet. I recommend them if you haven't. But one of the things I often ask people, because I love books and I feel books can be very healing and life-changing. You know, knowledge is power. Do you have favorite books that were super helpful in your healing journey?
Well, I really love Mel Robbins. So I listened to the 5-second rule, and oh goodness, I can't remember the other one.
By Mel Robbins?
Yeah. I really love Mel Robbins. I've listened to a lot of her books.
Yeah.
Girl, Stop Apologizing.
Okay.
By Rachel Hollis.
Yep, I read that one. Yep.
Let's see. I've listened to Mastering Your Mean Girl.
Were you ever a mean girl?
Mastering Your Mean Girl.
Do you mean the mean girl inside of you, or were you a mean girl to others? Okay, mastering the mean girl inside of you.
Yeah.
Oh, I never heard of it that way before. Who's that by again? Sorry.
That's by Melissa Ambrosini. Mindset by Carol Dweck.
My last podcast guest said that one as well.
Believe It by Jamie Kern Lima.
That's not that old, is it? Yeah.
No, it's not. It was released maybe 2020.
I've seen her speak a couple times. She's a wonderful speaker.
Wake Up by Lindsay Teague Marino. And a book that I have not read yet, but I'm really looking forward to reading is Parenting from the Inside Out.
I cannot tell you enough how wonderful that book is.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that.
Yes, I read it, I think the first time I was in therapy, or the first time I actually had a good therapist where I was doing deeper inner child work. And I did all the questions in the book. I journaled them all out. It was so, so helpful to me. And I was a new mom at the time.
Oh, wow.
My daughter's 19 now. She was less than 1 when I started working with her. And that book, I cannot say enough about it. It's really wonderful. So I hope you have a good experience with it. Yeah. So thank you for that. It's clear,
no problem.
It's clear that you're well-read and love books like I do, or listening to is helpful. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. One of the things I didn't mention in the beginning is we do have something in common. I think I read you're living in New Brunswick now. My parents live in New Brunswick. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
So I wanted to tell you that. But you were born in Nova Scotia, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So you went from Nova Scotia to Alberta?
I went from Nova Scotia to New Brunswick to Alberta, back to New Brunswick.
Okay. Where in New Brunswick do you live now?
Between Fredericton and St. Stephen.
Okay. My parents live near Perth Andover.
Okay.
Is it northeast maybe?
Yeah, it's a little bit. It's up by Woodstock.
Yes, it is by Woodstock, yes. Okay, yeah. Today's been a very international audience day. I had Kurdistan and Britain and now Canada.
Oh, wow.
Wait, I had one other guest. No, you're third for today. Yeah, so an international podcast day. I love it. Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing what you shared in terms of, your personal story. I think, well, I know that when our moms don't take care of us, it's a very primal wound. It's our first primary wound. There's a book called The Primal Wound, and it's an adoption story, but it talks about that connection with birth mother and when they aren't able to give us the love and support, fulfill our needs. Society doesn't really prepare us for that very well because the stereotypical mother is nurturing and kind and life-giving, right? And so how did you heal from that piece? Or have you?
It's a work in progress. I have gone through the work of forgiving my biological mom because she had 2 other kids before me. I was her third child. And I'm the only one that she didn't choose to raise. So that triggered a lot of, well, why wasn't I good enough?
Right.
At this point, I don't wish any harm toward her, but I'm very indifferent. She's not in my life. We don't communicate. She doesn't know anything about her grandchildren. And that was largely her choice. When I released my book, she didn't like it. And her opinion of that was not flattering. So she chose to
cut the relationship,
be on her way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a quote, and I've somehow twisted it in my head a bit. It's by Anne Lamott, and my take. This is not the quote, but this is my take of the quote. If people want us to write nicely about them, they need not to be assholes. That's not the quote, but that's my takeaway. And so, yeah, it's okay that she doesn't like it. It's the truth can hurt.
Well, it's my story. It's my story, and I'm not going to glaze over it just to appease her, to make her feel better about her choices. So
right. So tell us a bit about your book and where we can find it too.
So my book, Rising from the Ashes, Reclaiming Your Life After Traumatic Childhood, is just a short little read. It's 90 pages and it's very practical, gives you some keys, some key realizations, just things that I picked up in my healing. Things like believing in yourself, owning your worth, finding your voice, being able to speak up for yourself. Different things like that. And it's my goal was for it to be very practical. So it can be found on my website, with emilyc.ca, or it can be found on Amazon.
Okay. Yeah. So podcasters, she pointed to her book on her shelf. I know you can't see finger pointing, but the YouTubers can see it. And I'm glad she told us where we could find it for ourselves since we can't reach her shelf.
Yeah.
Okay. So is this the tools that you wrote about, is that what you use in your coaching practice, or do you use other things?
So the tools that I talk about in my book are very connected to my framework that I work through in my coaching program. So my coaching program, I have created, I call it the transformation staircase, and it's quite literally a graphic of a staircase, and each of the stairs is another concept. And the very bottom of the first two stairs are assess, because you can't change what you don't acknowledge. And a lot of the beliefs and stuff that are holding us back are things that we tend to not acknowledge because it's just always been that way. And then the second step is belief, because if you don't believe in yourself, who's going to do it for you? A quote that I wrote in my book is, the belief you have in yourself is far more valuable than the belief anyone else has in you. Mm-hmm. And that is, it's almost like a gut punch, because it's nice if your mom or your dad or your best friend believe in you, but their belief in you isn't going to really change your life. You have to believe in you. And this is something that I'm still learning. It's like an onion. You deal with one layer, and you are able to believe in yourself on that layer. And then you peel back the onion, and there's something else that you need to heal and care for and nurture and believe in yourself until you get to the very core of the onion. And it's peeling back the layers, because there's a good seed in the middle, and years of trauma have kind of piled stuff, layers of not so good stuff on top of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I really liked your description of the transformation, or your framework, the transformational staircase. That's really a great concept. I like
one
that.
Step at a time.
Yeah.
That's how we heal.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you for that.
Oh, no problem.
So as you know, most of my audience is women recovering from trauma or childhood abuse, and some of them are struggling right now to have hope. What would be some words of wisdom to help them if they're feeling stuck right now?
Mama, if you are listening today and you are feeling stuck, know that there is a huge community of mamas who have walked a similar journey, not the same journey, because each of us has a unique trauma. But we are willing and ready to take you by the hand and walk with you. Take you by the hand and be your shoulder. I encourage my clients to be in community with other cycle-breaking mamas, because those cycle-breaking mamas are going to be able to resonate with how you're feeling. They're going to be able to lift you up from the darkest pit and help you brush yourself off when you feel like you don't have the strength. It's like going to It's like going to the meat guy to get your computer fixed. The meat guy's not going to know how to fix your computer. You need to go to the tech guy to get your computer fixed. So when you're dealing with your trauma and you're walking through motherhood on its own is hard. Motherhood while dealing with trauma, that's a whole other kettle of fish.
That's right.
A whole other kettle of fish. So walking in community with other mamas who are healing their trauma is like walking in a sisterhood that is unique. It's unique. And we will hold you up when you feel like you can't do it yourself.
That's really beautiful. I do a lot of teaching and preaching on the
Mm-hmm.
need for community when we're healing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that was really, really
Don't
good.
do it alone.
And it's really hard to do alone. Some people choose to,
Mm-hmm.
but it's
Some
really
people choose
hard.
to.
Yeah. And maybe later, the community can be at different points in our life, as well.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
Community can just be hugely healing and rewarding and
Mm-hmm.
validating, affirming. So for all those reasons, it's helpful.
Mm-hmm.
So anyone listening today, if they want to find you to explore your services, where should they go?
Well, I am on Instagram at emily.cleghorn.coaching. Or you can find me on my website withemilyc.ca. So Instagram at emily.cleghorn.coaching
Mm-hmm.
or on my website withemilyc.ca.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Emily, for being here today. It was a very moving story, and I think your approach is very promising. And good luck with everything that you do.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for listening in today. Please join us next week, same day and time. Also, I would love for you to check out my website, healthrivedream.com.